Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's episode. He's the Chief Results Officer, and he helps people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. Very excited to be rocking out today with Blaine Oelkers. Hey, Blaine, you ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock, Tim. I'm so excited to be here. I've listened to many of your episodes. I don't know, like there's hundreds of episodes. So those of you who have not heard them all, get back in there, get subscribed. This is good stuff. And especially if you're thinking about working from home or you already work from home, we're going to deliver some value today, but we're excited to be here, and I'm excited to be a guest on the show.
Me too. This is going to be great. So we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Yeah, I love working from home, and one of my mentors, and maybe we'll talk about mentors today. One of my favorite mentor by far is a guy named Jim Rohn. Have you ever heard of Jim Rohn?
Sure have, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I love Jim Rohn. Got to meet him. Got to host him at an event. Share the stage with him a few times. But anyway, he has a whole program called "The Day That Turns Your Life Around." And so he talks about this day where you end up making kind of this clarifying decision. Now, a lot of times it's out of disgust, for something, but you make this clarifying decision. You have this like moment of dawning comprehension. And so for me, that happened. I had a few moments of dawning comprehension, but I went to Purdue University, got a computer science degree, similar to your degree as well. And so we share that. And I was out in the workplace, and I'm working this tech job, and I'm on a long business trip, and I come home from this long business trip, and I get home, and then my son, Bo, he's about 1 year old at the time, and he's acting strange. Like, I think he's sick. So I say, Beth, what's wrong with Bo? It's like, is he sick? And she goes, no, he's not sick, but you were gone so long. He forgot who you were. And I was like, wait, what? And so like emotionally that hit me. And then I have flashbacks as a kid. Both my parents worked. So I came home to an empty house. My brother typically wasn't there. And like, it was a little like scary sometimes. But anyway, all that flashes back to me. So that night, kind of emotionally, I make this clarifying decision that no matter what happens, I'm going to be a work from home dad. And so no matter what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. And I had the emotion behind that decision, right? To really kind of make it stick. Now, this was way back before side hustles and remote working was cool like it is now. But anyway, back then, what I did is I kept my regular job, and I started two businesses, and we could unpack that a little bit more, but I started two businesses, and it took me a year. But a year later, my wife made a deal. She's very supportive, but she said, when the side hustles are making more money than the regular job, and we have 6 months of living expenses in the bank, by all means, take the leap of faith and work for yourself. So it took me a year, but a year later, I set myself free from the job, and that was 27 years ago. So I've been this work from home dad for 27 years now. The kids are grown out of the nest, and I've got to find more things to do around the house. But, I've been able to work from home, and I love it. And I would wish for anybody the control that's there, the freedom. Now, it takes a little self-discipline. There's some pros and cons to that, but I have loved it. And when I really peel it back, like, why do I do it? Yes, for the love of my son and to be a great dad. But when I peel it back further, it's because I'm a schedule, an event control freak. Like, I want control of, where I go, when I do it. And I hate when people say, you have to be here, or you have to do this. And I'm like, no, I don't. So anyway, but it's the control. And I would fight for that, and keep my businesses running, simply to maintain that control of schedule.
Wow. You and I have a very similar mindset, I think. It's the same thing for me. I started working from home when my son was 1. And
Oh, wow.
same type of thing. It's amazing what can happen when you have a really clear why, eh?
100%, 100%. And it's that clarifying decision that like makes a lot of decisions for you. And really, I call it like you go from the lantern with the light kind of glowing in all directions to the laser where all the lights focused on one thing. And then I was only focused on like, what could I do from home? Like, all the regular jobs were out the window. I didn't even have to look at those. And I looked at two things. One was I started basically a placement company, a recruiting kind kind of placement company in the area in software engineering, basically helping friends from college that I knew, get jobs. And sometimes there was a regular job, but many times it was a contract position where, they would be our employee, but they'd be working on site. And so they would get like $40 an hour, but we were billing, say, 50 or 55 an hour. We were making the spread, but we had to put the money out first. But anyway, but it was only like one swim lane over from what I was doing. Like, I knew that industry. I'd been in the industry. I had actually, for a while, I had been a contract programmer myself. So that was one. And then the other one, which we were talking before the show that we share, is I also got into, a home-based business, right? I got into a home-based business where there were really no daily operations, and I could scale through leverage. Like, if I could help other people make a little money, I would make some money too. And it was actually was selling blue-green algae. So I was a little bit of a health freak, and they still today, 27 years later, they're still harvesting the algae out of this lake up in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and selling it as kind of a nutrient dense food. So anyway, it was a little bit of a passion project, but it also, did bring in some income as well.
Wow. So now, okay, lots of stuff that happened there. Probably not all of it was awesome. There was probably a few things that didn't go as planned. And I do like to talk about the bad notes. So what was it? Is there something that just sticks out in your mind that didn't go as planned? And how did you recover?
Yeah, so I made a mistake, which hopefully you will all learn from this and not make this mistake. But my greatest mistake in business was that that company that I started, which was the personnel company, I started with a good friend in college. So getting a good partner, fantastic. Maybe we'll talk about getting mentors, another fantastic thing. But the mistake I made was that we set up the company as a 50-50. Now, I will never be a part of a 50-50 again, because people don't grow the same. Their ideas aren't the same, right? And I'm happy to be the 49, and then I know where I stand. It's like I'm here along for 50%, 49% of the profits, but it's your deal, right? I'm happy to be that. Or the 51. Now, I will say all the businesses I've done since then, I've been the 51, on the partnership ones. But I think that's important, that I say, if you're going to do something like that, you have to have the exit strategy in place. Like, how are you going to evaluate the company if one partner wants to buy the other, and have all that stuff pre-done, because it really is like a marriage, especially if you do that 50-50 stuff. So anyway, so I had a little bit of a business divorce there. Luckily we're still friends, but it was a rough patch, in kind of getting myself out of that business, and in the end, kind of selling it to him. But lawyers got involved, and that's always not fun. But I did learn from that, and I took that lesson, and I never did a 50-50 ever since, since then. And I also got in my mind the exit strategy for any new thing I'm going to do. Like, any new thing I'm going to do, like, okay, maybe I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, but if I wasn't, what's my exit strategy, right? How am I going to get out of that? And many of us who work from home, it's really just like a job from home. It's not a real business that could like run on its own. And so I always was trying to figure out, what can I get in that has no daily operations on my part? And in the end, I could be a business owner, right? Instead of kind of the business doer, and so that was probably my biggest lesson.
Wow. A couple things there. Number one is that I've had quite a few guests on this podcast that have definitely discouraged partnerships, and probably for some obvious reasons, but you're the first one that's had the whole 51% thing. That's really, really bright. I like that idea, because I think there's a lot of people that get into partnerships because they don't quite have the confidence on their own to do something, right? I think it's one of those things where if I could just find that other person that could bring me up, and it goes great for a while, and then eventually, like as you say, we don't grow the same rates. It all falls apart. But if you do have that 51%, I like that idea, because I think that if we just say, don't get into a partnership, well, then you might have a lot of entrepreneurs who just won't do it. They just won't start a business because they don't feel like they can. So I like that idea. That's really, really bright for sure.
Well, and the other thing is, know that it's going to sell sometime. Like, if you go into a partnership, and whether you're the 51 or the 49, someone's going to buy the other one out. or one of you pass away or something, and now a spouse or someone else has to figure out. But if you pre-say, this is what, going into this is what we say the business is worth, it's going to be based on sales or profits or EBITDA or whatever you want, you can have the accountants figure that out. But you set that up, that ratio, that formula, before, and now everybody knows the value. It's up front, and you don't have to argue about it later.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the second thing that I want to bring up is the whole fact of if you start to build a business with the intention to make it sellable at the end, I think you make different decisions, right? You're cleaner about things when you're thinking about it from the perspective of, well, if I have to hand this up to somebody else, they're going to have to like figure it out. And if I do it, just with my own intentions, well, then maybe I have things in my head, right? Oh, and well, it runs because it's just what I do. But if you start to build things with the intention to sell, then all of a sudden things get out of your head and onto a piece of paper so that you can hand it off to somebody. Is that how you think about it too?
Yeah, I think for selling, but or for also for scaling, right? Like to try to scale your business and also to try to pull yourself out of the business, right? A lot of work at home people, it's just them, and that's it. And that can be good, keep it small, keep it all, right? If you're going to be a high profit business, you can do really well as a freelancer or something like that. But yes, putting in systems in place, getting it out of your head and figuring out how else could this thing run, right? We often say delegate to elevate. What can you delegate, off your plate that is some $20 an hour task, and you can go out and make $100 or $50 an hour, right? So you really, yes, systems and delegation and having it kind of run without you, where in the end you own the business, but it can stand somewhat, on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned something before too, where we grow as time goes along. So, maybe today you're looking at starting a business and you're thinking, you know what, this is what I want to do forever. Well, that could change in a couple of years after
Right.
doing it, right? And
Right.
if you didn't kind of keep that in mind as you were starting, well, then you might end up in a situation where now you're not excited about your business, but now you have to figure out how to transition it to somebody else, and that's not fun, right? When you're
Right.
doing things you're not interested in, and maybe the wrong energy will go into it at that point, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally right on. And a lot of times, sometimes it's you change, and then sometimes the world changes. Sometimes you have to pivot, and you can have a whole business model, and something can happen to the outside world, and all of a sudden you've got to pivot and you've got to change. And so, yeah, I think when you set yourself up with systems and you're always thinking about how this thing could run without you, then you're in better shape to pivot, and you actually have more time, more think time, which is what most people don't do enough of. They just get kind of stuck in execution mode, where the think time can be the most valuable.
Yeah, I agree. So now, okay, one of the things that really, and you've been working home for longer than I have, but one of the things that caught me off guard when I first started working from home is the jam room, is the home office. And it was working at the kitchen table, working on the couch, and that worked for a while. But after a while, I started to figure out some ideas on how to be successful in the home office. And I'm wondering, what about you? Like, what does your home office look like, and how do you approach setting up to be productive?
Yeah, I think your first point is really key, and that is that you designate some space, some room, some corner, some place that is the identity that you get when you go in. It's time to work, right? So you're putting on the identity. There's that Sylvester Stallone movie where he arm wrestles, and when he turns his hat around, he knows he means business. And so it's the same thing, that you have this place where you have this identity, of that's where you're going to work, and then that's where you try to keep the work in that spot. So I always have a room. We actually just sold our big house because the kids are gone, and we downsized into apartment, but I still have my own room, my own office. And then you want to set that office up for high productivity, right? For you, whatever that is for you, right? So you got all your supplies, you got all your stuff, and you want to make it so that you do time block yourself for hours, of serious work, right? I call it single tasking mode, where you're in there doing that low distraction, work. So for me, yeah, I mean, I have a nice computer. I also, I'll have some snacks and things, like, so I don't have to. There's a lot of distractions at home. And the key is that you've got to set up that environment that invites you to work and keeps you working. Right. Because if you have to, if I go out to that kitchen, and then, whatever, maybe my wife's there watching something on TV, or I talk with her, or I decide I'm going to make a little food instead of grab a little food. And now all of a sudden, those little things, really add up and really distract you from, kind of getting your work done. So setting up the place, you got your water, you got your healthy snacks, and it's really an environment designed to work on all areas too. Like I even have, certain music, right? There's certain, you're a musician, so you know this, but I modulate myself with music, meaning that I can be like hyper, like too amped up, too much caffeine, and I can put on, some classical music, some study music. I have an app that creates personal soundscapes, a company called Endel that creates a personal soundscape based on the weather, the time of day, my heart rate, and then what I choose, like what I'm doing. Like if I'm exercising, it's a different personal soundscape than if I'm doing focused work. So anyway, so that's kind of cool. But setting up that, that environment. Another thing that in my home office, using timers for stuff. Now I have an iPhone, so I'll just tell Siri, set a timer for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Again, like if I'm going to go check email, I better set that timer. Otherwise, zoom, I'm sucked into the screen. I'm gone for hours sometimes. I get that email with the irresistible offer. I click on it. I'm lost for a while. So anyway, but doing that, setting the timers, I've got that set up, in the office. I do like, I spent a little extra money and I got the desk that moves up and down, right? So I'm sitting right now, but I can stand, I can use a bar stool. I could use an office chair. I mean, a lot of different possibilities with that. I really, really like that. And then everything is pre-set up. Like if you do a lot of video, like I do a lot of video. So I've got my little desk here set up. I got a little green screen back here. I got a Yeti blue mic up here, but and a little camera, everything's ready to go. Like I can just jump in and go. And you really want to dial down the resistance, ergonomically in your office, dial down the resistance to the things you want to do, right? And dial up the resistance to the things you don't want to do, right? Like if I don't want a snack, then I put all the snacks, outside, in the locked cupboard or something, right? Or I'll have a sign on my door, don't go snack, just some little cue, little reminders, set it up, the environment that way. So there's a couple of jam room tips.
Wow. And those are really good ones.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew Agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they are fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew Agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
And it's crazy that oftentimes you really have to police yourself because you get into these moods, I guess, where all of a sudden you start to do things like check your email and get on Facebook and get stuck in that forever. And I like the idea of setting a timer for that stuff, especially for that stuff, because you do need to check your social media from time to time, in your business. I mean, a lot of us do business on social media, but it is like literally designed to suck you in, like literally designed with AI.
Right.
Like, and so if you think that you're stronger than that AI, I don't know.
It's not easy. It's not easy. Now you could try to build up your muscles and use a timer and say, I'm going to go do social media for 1 minute. So see if you can do it. Because I used to have Yahoo News as my home screen, home web browser window. And I had to change it just to Google, which just has the bar, occasionally put something at the top, but it's just like the search bar only, because I just, even that alone, open up a new browser and then I'd see the headlines, I'd see, something, and I'm just sucked right in.
Yeah, I took all my social media apps on my phone and I put them like 3 screens over. like so I have to like scroll a few times to go over to the social media apps, and it actually does work because I'll go scrolling and then I'll be like, wait, no, okay, I'm not supposed to be doing that right now. But like before,
So
when it was just sitting on your home screen, it's just boop, click it, and then you're
right.
stuck, you know?
We are cut from the same mold because I literally did the same thing. I moved all the social media to the third or fourth screen, and then you can combine apps on the iPhone and put them in a folder. And I have them in a folder called "Don't Do This." So I have to go another step. I have to go into the folder. It says "Don't do this" at the top, and then I have to literally click it.
Okay, I'm gonna add the don't do this because I literally have the folder too. It's the only folder on that screen, and I have to go looking for it. Yeah, that's a great idea. And also, I like your idea about the snacks and the water. I've got a little bar fridge in my office, and I put my water in there because you're right. You go upstairs, and next thing you know, you're stuck with something else, right?
Right.
And I mean, hey, it's not that bad to get up and walk around a little bit as well, but at least now it's for something that I specifically need to do. I need to get up and walk around, and that's why I'm going upstairs. It's not because I'm thirsty, I need a glass of water, which is totally normal when you're doing a lot
Right.
of calls, right? But that can be in my office. So now, what about other tools? Like, do you have other instruments and tools that you use in your business that get you success?
I would say the timers are a big one. For me, and I think probably that it's not really that super sexy. But next day planning is probably the thing that helps me get the most, stay on track, not be distracted by shiny objects. And so next day planning, I have a little thing: never let a day end without planning the next one. So typically in the afternoon, I plan out my next day. And, kind of like the day before vacation, which is actually the most productive day of the year for everyone. You get 3 to 10 times more stuff done on the day before vacation. Like the day before vacation, that day is planned out, like sometimes to the minute, right? So I will over plan my day a little bit. And then I know life comes in and messes you up, but that over planning keeps you focused. You get so much more done. So I typically start that day with a pretty good plan. And I like the first like 30 to 60 minutes to almost be like automatic pilot, where I don't even have to think about it. I'm just going to do this, then this little morning routine. I've got some things I do. I take a mind shower in the morning, and these different things that just are automatic, and start my day kind of also in the win column as well. Get some early wins. I like to win early and win often.
Okay, so I have a question because I've tried the next day planning before too, and it tends to get away from me quite often. Do you plan some time for the whirlwind, of things that are going to pop in that you don't expect? Or do you just sort of stick to the plan that you had yesterday and whatever, if something else comes in and you put it to the day after?
Yeah. If I'm going full day before vacation mode, I will plan out, every hour with stuff, which could be think time. There's the, loose ends time at the end of the day. So I'll put, and you could have think time. You could have, respond to urgency of the day time, right? You could put that stuff in. I typically don't put that in, but when it comes in, yeah, then it can boot out my schedule. And then some of that stuff has to get moved to the next day. Like if I don't do it today, I move it to the next day. But I also, I took it, like I realized, me personally, I am better, and I like this in school too. I'm a day ahead person. Like I like to be a day ahead. So in the beginning, I was a day behind, and then I got to be behind, then I was caught up, then I was ahead, then now I'm a day ahead. So typically when I wake up, I have appointments like this podcast, but everything I'm working on, there's nothing due today. Like all the today stuff is done already. And so I just operate better in that mode. So a lot of times I call it proactive procrastination. Like if it doesn't have to get done today, I like to push it to tomorrow or tomorrow's list. And then when I'm building that list for the day, yeah, see what really has to get done. And I try to live in the vital, and avoid kind of the trivial. And if you believe in the 80-20 rule, I mean, then 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results. I try to focus on the 20, but also at the same time oust the 80. Like I push it out for tomorrow, then I push it out again and again, and it wasn't really that important if it gets pushed out 3, 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. So then maybe what happens then when you're getting stuck with this whole trying to plan the next day is that you're probably just living behind right now, and you need to give it a few days before you can catch up and then be ahead, right?
Yeah, or you have to decide what's important and what's not, right? And that's the big thing. Is like if you have a list of 10 things, 2 of them are probably really important, and typically 8 aren't. Now, maybe it's 3, 7, what it's a close ratio of that. And if you have 100 things on your list, well, then only really like 20 are really important. And so it's giving yourself permission to let go of those unimportant things, right? That or not unimportant, not as important as the vital things. And you want to live your life in that, mode of where you're doing the vital things, the most important things, the things that move the needle, right? And so you can get overwhelmed. And for overwhelm, chief results officer, so I've got to have some kind of framework for that, because a lot of people are overwhelmed. And the framework, the way you get out of the overwhelm is you do a mind dump, but not just that, you have to process the list. So the mind dump is just where you get out a legal pad, paper, pad and pen, and you write down everything you're thinking of, all the things you have to do for your business, your life, as a parent, as a spouse, anything that's floating around up there, mind dump it out, give yourself a few minutes, take a walk, come back, hit it again. And, the last time I did a big one of those, I had like 463 items on the list. That's totally overwhelming. I'm toast. But you spend just a few minutes processing the list. And the way you process the list is you put an N next to anything that could be done in 5 minutes or less. So N stands for now, something I could do now, gain a little momentum. And sometimes I'll take a big task and I'll break it down into some N's, like I have to write an article. I write a lot of articles for newsletters where they put me in their newsletter. So I have to write this article, but maybe I'll say, come up with the topic, create an outline, do a rough draft, get some images, get it proofread, like all those I can, I'll break the thing into multiple tasks. But you put an N next to that, and then you put a D next to things you can delegate. So you might end up doing them, but there's something that you could delegate. Now, maybe you got to train somebody, and that's a whole nother topic, but D is for delegate. S stands for schedule. Now, S is something that is so important that whatever time window you're looking at, you need to schedule it, right? So if I'm doing a mind up just for the day, an S is something I need to schedule to do today. If I do mine for the week, I do it on Friday afternoon. I'll put an S next to things that need to be scheduled for next week. And then the last letter is L for later or let go, but you do L for later, meaning it's not in the window. Now, most of my lists, like more than 80% are L's. If you're doing the big list, it's like, it doesn't have to be done next week.
Yeah.
It's a bigger goal, or it's some gift for somebody that's, a month out, but it was swimming around up here and I need to get it out. But anyway, that's the key, is that you quickly process the list, and then make sure you start with a couple of N's, get a little momentum, and then maybe eat the frog, do the hardest, S one that you have there, schedule the hardest one first just to kind of get it out of the way. But that tends to help people move out of the, the overwhelmed stage and into the get going stage.
Wow, that's huge, Blaine. Thank you so much for that one. That's definitely actionable that anybody can do, really, like right now, right?
Yeah, yes. Whenever you feel that overwhelm, grab a piece of paper.
Yep. So now you open the interview with a Jim Rohn quote. I'm wondering, obviously learning is important to you, and growing and mentors. So tell me your approach. Like, do you have a coach right now? When was your first coach? Like, what's your approach to getting help from other people?
Yeah. So I think that, you're going to go a lot further and a lot faster if you get a mentor. Now, the mentor that you have, it could be, it could be someone down the track a little bit further than you in that business that you're doing, right? So and a lot of times those people will help as long as they don't see you as like a direct competitor or something. So you can reach out to those people. Now, if you're going to do that, it's someone that you want to do that to. Start by following that person. Start by investing in that person. What I mean by that is typically they're going to have an Instagram or a Facebook or something, or LinkedIn, and start following them, but start saying, hey, that's a great thing. Start giving them some praise, right? They're going to get to know your name. I guarantee it. If you give somebody praise for a couple of weeks, they're going to know who you are. And then you step in to ask, or maybe you buy their book or their program or whatever, and you kind of begin to lean into that relationship, right? And that can be huge. The other option you have, which I used a lot of initially, was just audio programs, right? So I said, Jim Rohn, before I met him, I listened to, now I'll date myself, this was on an audio cassette program back in the 80s, but he had an audio cassette program. Now it's on Audible, it's on YouTube. It's called The Power of Ambition. But I listened to that thing like 50 times, and the audio quality was starting to go down because I just listened to it for so many times. But I can I often say the solution to pollution is dilution. And like if I have an hour of victim thoughts and self-doubt and all the head trash up there, I can put on, if I probably need a few hours of Jim Rohn. I get a couple of hours of Jim Rohn, it dilutes down that negative pretty quickly, right? So if you have a, so audio programs is my number one favorite. Reading books like I like the book Think and Grow Rich, but some book that is educational to you. You can read somebody's biography and get to know them, right? So you can have that relationship, through the book. But you got to be pouring in the positive, the things that are going to help you grow, the things that are going to move you forward. In Think and Grow Rich, another thing that I like to do, it may sound a little weird, but in Think and Grow Rich, he talks about invisible counselors. And that's where in your mind, you sit at the table with someone. They could be alive or they could be dead. My dad kind of tragically died the day my son was born. And, so I know my dad very well, right? I was, 30, years old when he passed, but so I could have this conversation in my mind with him. Right. It's the same thing with like Benjamin Franklin, or Napoleon Hill or Jim Rohn. I did get to meet Jim Rohn and spend a bunch of time with them. I know them so well that I can have these kind of guidance, counselor, conversations, in my mind. So anyway, there's lots of ways, but I would definitely seek out, a mentor to help you kind of avoid the potholes, but then also to keep your battery charged, and those mentors are going to kind of pour into you.
Wow. Very, very good. Check it out. Oh, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, there it is.
I have the book. Actually, it's on my desk. I keep it around all the time. I don't know why. I just do.
It's a great story. I read it in the 80s.
You got one too.
And I read it in the 80s, right? You can see it. But what's interesting is later I bought one of the first 5,000 copies. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I realized, guess what? Everybody read the wrong book. That this book was different, and this book has instructional pages on it.
Oh, wow.
And the first page says, what do you want most? And so he tells you how to prepare to read the book. And then the second page, he tells you how to read the book. And so anyway, in the end, oh, there's a green screen, so you really can't see it. I had to go out and find and get the original and self-publish it. So I actually have Think and Grow Rich Book Study Edition, which has the original and all that stuff. So I'll get your address and I will send you a copy of that book.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. That's awesome. And I also have the audiobook as well that I've been listening to again recently. It's weird how things work out. I've just recently started listening to it over and over again. So anyway,
I mean, you are my brother from another mother here. We got the same books. We got all this stuff. This is great.
The universe was aligning my path here so that for this interview, yeah. I think. So now I'd love to talk to you forever, but it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting about your business right now.
Yeah. So in the end, in 2009, I created a company called Self-Fluence, which is different from those first two companies I started, because I realized why I'm on the planet. I figured out that I like to help people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves, something I call Self-Fluence. That's the name of this company. I often say powered by Self-Fluence. So it's all about, it's about the power you already have to influence yourself. Like you don't need anything new, anything extra. So now I'm the chief results officer, basically helping people with personal implementation, getting yourself to do the things you know you should be doing, but you're not doing. And so I do that for mastermind groups, which I love to do. And I do it for business owners as well. And so probably the most exciting thing is I run something called Super Results Days. So 3 days a month, we get on Zoom every 3 hours. We hold each other accountable. We learn something new and we mastermind together. So it's kind of a cool, like a day of super results where you like crush the to-do list, you make the clarifying decisions, and the group kind of holds you accountable throughout the day, to do some of that stuff. And there's more power in the group. That's the other thing about working from home sometimes. It's a little isolating. And, I get a lot more done if I'm accountable to someone other than myself. I have a lot of self-discipline, but when I have other people that I'm accountable to, I get a lot more done. So I'm running those days, and that's probably the thing I like the most.
Love it. So how do we find out more then?
The easiest thing is just connect with me. I've got a TEDx talk that I did about a concept called Waiteba. So Waiteba is what you think about, you bring about. So I did a TEDx talk on that. And if you just go to BlaineTEDx.com, so BlaineTEDx.com, you can opt in for that. Then we'll get to know each other. You'll have my email. And if I can serve you in any way, I'd love to do it.
And that is so awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Blaine. This has been a lot of fun.
Nice. I loved it. And you know what? I'll leave the audience with this. The bad news is time flies. The good news, you're the pilot. So pilot well, my friends, pilot well.
Very, very good words. So thank you so much. And thanks to the listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.